Hey everyone, are you ready for some more schizophrenic reports from your media masters, your opinion makers? Well, here goes. Whether you're ready for it or not, headline out of CBC News, this under the business section. Economy unexpectedly lost 7,500 jobs in May as unemployment rate held at 5.8%. Average of forecasts had pointed to a gain of more than 22,000 jobs last month. So, it's just a shock once again. But meanwhile, how many times have we seen the shock? After you've been shocked so many times, don't you think that you'd be like, oh, maybe I should expect it in the future? How many shocks does it take? Like, how many times you got to keep touching that hot element on the stove, right? It's like, oh, fuck. You know what? Next time I should realize that it's going to be hot and maybe not touch it right away. Maybe hover my hand above it before I actually, commit to actually touching it, right? The media, the political pundits, the so-called experts, well, look at how many times they're wrong. I mean, if I maybe I should do it at some point in time. Just do a whole string of articles. It could be like hours-long videos, though, of all these articles where these central planners, these so-called experts, were completely wrong in their assumptions and their predictions, right? But yet people still trust them. Wow. I mean, if you think in May, to lose 7,500 jobs in May is usually the month, one of the biggest months we're hiring, especially because people then have been off over the winter, right? Because there's some areas, like especially in the construction trades, where a lot of people get laid off over the winter. So April and May are usually hiring months because that's when the warmer weather's finally come around and the hiring process begins, like for the season, right? But to see job losses in May, yeah, that's a big old warning sign, folks, that the economy isn't humming along exactly as expected or as the political pundits or the political ruling class put forth and pretend. The Canadian employment picture was weaker than expected in May as the country unexpectedly lost about 7,500 jobs according to figures released Friday by Statistics Canada. The average expectation of 14 forecasts was for the country to add just over 22,000 jobs last month, Bloomberg said. Well, yeah, because that under normal situations and circumstances, you would think, like I say, at this time of the year, there should be, because people that are normally not working because they were off over the winter are entered into the workforce. But so once again, folks, like you got to take this stuff into consideration when you're thinking about the actual genuine economic health of this country. Despite the small drop in the number of people working, the national unemployment rate held steady at 5.8% last month. Full-time employment dropped by 31,000 in May, but that was offset by a rise in part-time work of about 23,600 jobs for the month. So think about it. They lost 31,000 full-time jobs, and it was offset by an increase of 23,000 part-time jobs. So the full-time job loss is even a higher number than the part-time, and part-time obviously doesn't pay as much as full-time, so it's a double negative there, folks. It's a double negative. Look at this, where it shows Canada's unemployment rate. The unemployment rate at 5.8%, that's one thing, and then the net job gains and losses, that's another area. But look in the middle. Look at that chart in the middle, folks. Look at the participation rate. That's telling you a lot of people are just exiting stage left, and a substantial portion, that's probably the boomers that are now, finally, going off into entering their retirement years, right? And finally saying, fuck, I just can't deal with it no more. I'll live off a smaller amount or a smaller slice of the pie because I just don't want to deal with the economic situation or the economic enslavement or the massive amount of bureaucracy and disruptions to what it means to be a truly prosperous nation or a truly prosperous individual contributing economically to society. They realize that, no, it's just not worth it anymore. It's just not worth it anymore. So the participation rate is now seemingly dropping off, and it's dropping off at a fairly substantial rate, and I expect that will continue on forward, and that's why they're trying to bring in this mass influx of whether it's illegal or the illegal migrants, because they realize shit's going to hit the fan eventually, and they're just hoping that they can fucking create some kind of barrier to prevent that shit from actually sticking and being a proper representation of the reality, of the genuine economic realities out there. They're constantly trying to paint over that reality. It's not going to work, folks. Trust me. In the end, you will find out that people like myself, yeah, Economics, numbers don't lie. Mathematics, as much as political propaganda might try to manipulate it, 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. You can't escape that reality, whether you like it or not. Statistics Canada said employment for men and women in the core working age of 25 to 54 both fell by about 19,000 in May. The unemployment rate for men in this age group held steady at 5%, while it increased by 0.2% points to 4.9 for women. Provincially, employment increased in Prince Edward Island, while it decreased in British Columbia and Nova Scotia. Among the other provinces, little change in the job situation was seen. PEI added 800 jobs in May as the provincial unemployment rate fell by 1.9 percentage points from April to 9.3%. Oh, yeah, well, that's great, right? In BC, employment dropped by 12,000 in the month. Statistics Canada said that the first time since May 2015, employment there showed virtually no growth in a year-over-year basis. The unemployment rate in the province, however, remained at 4.8% in May. The jobless rate in Alberta eased to 6.2% from 6.7% seen in April. Economists suggested Friday's subdued job report won't be enough to keep the Bank of Canada from boosting a key interest rate next month. They pointed to wage growth figures included in Friday's report as a potential factor in the pending rate decision. Scotiabank economist Derek Holt said wage growth in May accelerated to 3.9% year over year for permanent employees, the fastest wage growth since July 2012. Finally, Canadian workers are getting wage gains that are outstripping the rising cost of living, Holt wrote in a commentary. This is hawkish at the margin as it reinforces wages and price pressure in the Canadian economy. So actually, that's a perfect thing that I want to tie this video up with is, right, if we don't allow these central planning hacks, these bureaucrats, these political pundits, these authoritarians to keep finding out ways, whether it's through trade agreements or bringing in all these illegal migrants or economic migrants or even legal migrants, if there's a way that, and this is a perfect example, if you want your wages to increase, if you want your purchasing power to increase, if you want that to be sustained in any way, you got to push back. You got to push back, folks. So as the boomers drop out of the workforce, there's less and less slaves, less subjects, less serfs, vying for a particular pool of jobs, which means employers to entice or to gain a productive and healthy workforce, well, they're going to have to pay them, right? If you want the cream of the crop, if you want those who are most efficient, who are most competent, well, you're going to have to pay them more. So that's a good thing. That's always a good thing, folks. So once again, allowing the free market to actually function in any semblance, it's going to be a proper benefit. Stop letting these central planners find ways to keep undercutting your potential growth, especially for your wages and the economic growth of this country. Stop allowing these central planners to keep trying to forcefully redistribute all those economic gains that you're trying desperately to gain for yourself. Your children or your grandchildren will benefit tremendously, especially to those of you in the boomer generation or even Gen Xers. Like, help them out, man. Don't support these central planning hacks that want to bring other people in to take over, assume these tasks, these roles, these responsibilities. As long as you keep, the domestic population in check and at least the growth rate reasonable as far as proper immigration, as the boomer cohorts come out of the workforce, there will be definitely potential for raises and more economic prosperity for their offspring, for the successive generations. If we do things properly, folks, I guarantee it will be a net benefit, not just for those demographics, but even for the old folks, because you'll benefit from it too. Because if you're on, some gold-plated pension in the public sector, or even those who have some minor pension in the private sector, you will always benefit from your successive offsprings doing better. The golden rule, folks, the golden rule. You definitely going to want your successive offsprings to be prosperous economically, because that'll help you as well, right? It's that boat, right? The rising tide is going to benefit you. It might benefit your offspring, maybe even a little bit more than you, but hey, you've had your time. You've enjoyed that greater share of the pie for decades, boomers. Come on. Let some prosperity trickle down to your successive generations, and guess what? You'll benefit from it too. Shocking revelation. I know those in the media don't want to tell you that stuff, but that's just reality. That's just the truth. So, yeah, come on. Let's get together. Let's get on board. Let's get some wage increase here. Let's let the bad people that have been really fiscally and economically irresponsible, let them suffer for that. No, not tremendously. They'll learn. They'll learn from their past mistakes. They will learn. And reward those who are doing the right things, right? The savers, the most responsible, the economically astute and fiscally responsible, right? And socially observant. Let those people finally benefit once and for all the hard work and effort that they've put in. And once again, it'll benefit everyone. Even the people that we don't necessarily want to benefit will still benefit from our economic prosperity and our social freedoms and liberties. It's going to help everyone, folks, if it finally happens. If it does happen, which I expect will at some point in time. I don't know how it's going to go. There's probably going to be a whole lot of rough spots and rough patches in between. But once it finally does come to fruition and economic growth truly does take hold and start to take off, oh yeah. There's going to be a lot of tremendous benefits for those who've been properly astute and economically and socially responsible. You're going to benefit tremendously. Those of you who haven't, sorry, you're going to have to suffer some pain. It'll be short term. It won't be that bad. You will live and you will learn. This is Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.